Welcome back to the FarmCast, presented by 21st Century Equipment. I'm Mike Wemhoff in our Precision Ag Group, here with Derek Kyle, a product specialist manager, and we're excited to bring to you today from our Greeley location. We're standing in front of our model year 25S 7700 combine that we just received 3 weeks ago, and really excited to kind of talk about the features of this combine, what we're doing with it this year. We have also an S7800 in our Holyoke location that we'll be moving these two combines around, and we'll talk about some of the demos and things. But Derek, I guess just what is kind of some of the main features of the combine itself, and then we'll dive into some technology.
I think there's a lot of new exciting things, which, you know, a lot of people have probably seen some of this stuff online. Deere released this at Commodity Classic. There's been a lot of social media hype about these, and for good reason. I mean, there's a lot of cool stuff on these that's new. You know, in all the years we've been seeing combine releases, I think this one's probably the most exciting model year stuff. So physically, you know, they're not a ton different than the other machines, other years' machines, I would say, from the 700 series. There's a few different things. You know, now we can get factory installed adjustable auger spouts, factory installed cross auger shutoff kits. They've revamped some of the things on the electrical architecture and stuff, but so I would say those are some of the main key hardware components, along with the chopper. That's kind of more redesigned like the X9, right? You'll notice it's a little different in the way they've done that versus the S-Series machines were. But
and we have the X9 cab on this thing too, right?
That thing's awesome, right? If anybody sat in an X9 cab compared to the S-Series, it's way more roomier, the lights are better. I love it altogether. And with G5 display, G5 extended monitor, a new corner post display, there's a lot of information that you can get on there. It's just way more comfortable and user-friendly than the previous model years.
You have room for your kids in there.
You could put your kids in there. Yeah. You got. Once we start talking about what you're not going to be doing in the cab, you got plenty of time to watch your kids. So, no, but I think the shining star here is the tech that's with this thing.
Yeah.
You know, I'm sure a lot of people have heard about it, but some of the features that this thing is going to have from a automation standpoint are light years ahead of where a lot of other people or a lot of other manufacturers are at. Some of this stuff has never been done, right? So just terrain settings automation, which we'll dive into, ground speed automation, and predictive ground speed automation, right? So with the cameras up on top of the cab, there's a lot going on that this machine will do that previous ones have in the past. Yeah. So I'm excited to see how it's all going to work out.
I mean, I think the biggest thing is we're getting to the point where it's more proactive view on what's going to happen with the combine, and then adjusting the settings of the combine real time to match what the camera sees and what we see from other sources like satellite imagery.
Right. So. Yep. So I mean, to explain a little bit of difference before, so anybody that was at our High Plains Expo here in Greeley this winter, we covered a lot of this information. So to dive back into that a little bit, you have, let's start with terrain settings automation. That's similar to a current 700 series machines where you had automatic terrain adjust. So let's say I'm going down a hill, then it's going to adjust my fan and my chaffer and sieve so the grain's not trying to roll forward. Or if I'm going back up a hill, it's going to adjust that. You're going to have similar function with this machine here with some enhanced features. And then ground speed automation. Okay, so you're going to get that if you have a ProDrive machine, which ProDrive machines are pretty well standard on most all of them anymore. But if guys were used to Harvest Smart, did you ever run Harvest Smart back in the day with I mean, that was back to the 70 series machines. So what Harvest Smart would do would control ground speed based on crop input, right? And it was, I don't know, I've been in some hairy situations with it. If you got it dialed in, as the years progressed, it worked really well. But the early years were some pain points for a lot of guys, and I have to agree with them. There was times you turn that on and it'd dive into the crop and almost kill the machine, and everybody goes, well, I'm done with that. We're turning it off now.
A little nerve-wracking when it started.
So there's a lot more inputs into ground speed automation now that we didn't have before, right? So we're still monitoring engine load, rotor belt pressure, but now we're going to be monitoring things like header height, right? That matters. If I'm cutting wheat and I have the head on the ground, I'm taking in all that much more crop, the combine really wouldn't know outside of interior load. But now it knows, hey, I raise that head up, I know I'm going to be taking in less crop. It's going to automatically help adjust for that. So it's going to be a much more fine-tuned system, but it's still reactive, right?
Yep.
It doesn't know until the crop gets in the machine what it needs to do. So on top of that, you're going to be able to make, with ground speed automation, more more horsepower. One of the complaints we always got is I could only turn it up to 97% engine load when I had it Harvest Smart on. Well, we want to push it harder, right? Now I can bump it up to 103 with ground speed automation to push this thing. The whole name of the game is productivity, right?
Yep.
So, and then moving into the predictive side of things, the proactive thing, we have the cameras, obviously, that everybody's probably seen, giving us a live image. It's watching the crop out in the field, knowing what's coming ahead of us. So if I've got down crop, it's going to know that ahead of time, and it's automatically going to adjust machine speed to compensate for that, all right? And then satellite imagery, we'll dive into that a little bit more here in a minute, but it's also looking at satellite imagery so it knows biomass. So if it takes satellite imagery at the peak of the growing season, it'll know, let's just say the cameras are dirty, or it's 5, 6 o'clock at night, the sun's right in your windshield. If you can't see, the cameras can't see. So it's fall back to the satellite imagery. It knows, hey, this spot in the field is most likely lower yield or lower biomass than the rest of it. It's going to slow itself down so it doesn't plug it, right?
Yep.
So some really cool things to be able to help productivity.
Yep.
And that's the whole point of the game.
And I think, back to the days when AutoTrack first came out, customers really thought about, can this thing really do better than I could as a driver?
I guarantee it.
And there was, a little hesitation with that, and frankly, maybe a little hesitation with this kind of technology. But, you think about yourself in the cab of that machine, and your mind is thinking kind of reactively as well. You hear the machine bog down, or you hear it not have enough crop, and you try and dive forward a little faster, so that way you can try and fill that up or slow down so you can let it catch up. That's all reactive, and what this technology does for you is the machine does it for itself. And just like AutoTrack, we'll gain some trials with it and prove it out. But really excited to see customers adopt this technology so they can really think about that next step of automation.
Right. I think the whole point of automation on these new combines is not only productivity, but fatigue. I've always said you cannot put a monetary value on fatigue. Can a good operator outrun this machine with all the features on it? Probably, yeah. But for how long, right? If I'm doing 100 acres, no big problem. If I'm doing 5,000 acres, that gets tiring day after day after day after day, and trying to keep that consistent, right? I've rode with hundreds of customers, and even myself, when I'm running a machine, I'm only going to chase productivity and keep that machine at its peak capacity for so long, because you're kind of on the edge of your seat. Use irrigated wheat, for instance, right? Tall straw, you're taking a lot of material in, especially if you're windrowing, the head on the ground, and you got down spots. You really have to pay attention all the time and have that feel that crop in your feet and your butt sitting on the seat, and know what's coming next. You can see it, but you go, how wet's the straw? Maybe I started too early in the morning. So you're chasing that all the time. And after a few hours, you get on the phone, everything's busy, truck's broke down, whatever it is, you get distracted. So what do? You pull the hydro handle back, you set it at a fixed speed, and you keep harvesting because it's less stressful. Well, if the machine can do that for you and keep that productivity here, we're not chasing ground speed. I'm chasing throughput.
Yep.
How many bushels an hour, how many acres an hour can I do it consistently? So if I am on the phone, the combine's looking ahead and it's going to slow down or speed up to maximize that. That's where you're going to gain your monetary value, is that productivity. How many bushels an hour can I do with this machine compared to fighting machine? You might not notice it day one, day two. Look at it through the course of the harvest. How much more productive can I be by letting this machine do it? And I bet you we're going to have a hard time seeing anybody that's going to be able to outdo a 20% productivity increase throughout the lifespan, especially if you're harvesting a lot. It's tiring. It really is. So
yeah. Utilize the capabilities of the operations center I love your bushels per acre, because everything's always been acres per hour, and to really try and measure how efficient is this operator or this machine doing in this field.
Right.
So we have the capabilities now to really measure that bushels per hour, and specifically this machine, look in the operations center, compare your previous numbers to the numbers with this machine, or if we're on a demo with your farm with this machine, we'll happy to help you understand what those numbers look like, and really think of that value add for the customer.
Yeah, and we're going to be comparing that, and it'll work out good too. Obviously, a day demo is a hard thing. Like I said, it takes time, but if we've got two very similar machines in the field at the same time, one not running it and one running it, maybe you see more productivity out of this machine in a day's time, but I guarantee the operator that gets out of the seat, once he gets familiar with it, is going to go, I'm not as tired because I just ran 10 hours and I didn't have to chase that thing all day long, right?
Yep.
The certain crop, it just depends on the crop, right? I'm not usually typically worried about it in corn unless it's down.
Sure.
But, edible beans or wheat or anything like that can get stressful.
Absolutely.
So it's tiring when you're that stressed. So.
Give you time to eat lunch and dinner.
It is. Hopefully. We just need somebody to fly lunch up to the cab so I don't have to stop the machine, because everybody eats their lunch before 9 o'clock in the morning anyway when they bring it in the machine. So.
Exactly. Eat when it's there.
Yeah, pretty much. But no, I think it's going to work out really well. I'm excited to see. We've got a lot of demos that we're going to be doing with these machines.
How many demos are we doing?
We're probably I hope to do at least 10 with a couple machines in wheat harvest. We're going to have these machines throughout the growing season this year. So we're going to get it out in wheat. We're going to get it out in soybeans. We don't have a lot of soybeans in our area, but mostly in our eastern portion of our geography, we've got soybeans out there. So I'm actually pretty excited to see it in green stem soybeans. Yeah. That's another tough one where you're really pushing the machine's limits. Let this thing do what it wants to do. And then we'll run it again in wet corn and dry corn this fall. So it'll be pretty good. And then we've been prepping for, obviously we're prepping for demo season. We're probably, 2-3 weeks out from wheat harvest.
Yeah.
We're depending on.
It's been hot and dry, so maybe sooner.
It's going to be 100 degrees today, so I think soon we'll probably be starting. These machines will be moving down south, and obviously there's guys cutting wheat further south of us in different states right now, so it'll be here before we know it. But we'll go back to that satellite imagery and how that system kind of works. And so what we've found out is basically what happens is ahead of time we would know if it was in I had one of these machines, I have all my fields boundaried. That's one of the keys. You have to have, in order for predictive ground speed automation and all that to work, we need to have a boundary on a field. So pretty simple. Most customers have boundaries on their fields. And for this instance, the boundary quality isn't very critical. We just have to have a boundary. So what we'll do is we'll go in and say, hey, I'm going to harvest fields 1, 2, and 3. And you want to plan ahead. I know we talk about this pretty much every episode. We need to plan.
Plan.
So, planning ahead is very important, because what we need to do is we need to build a work plan. So we've talked about work plans on previous things before, but that's a critical component to these machines. Is we'll get the work plan together. We know what machine, what field, what variety, all of that ahead of time. Once we set that work plan up, then it'll start pulling that satellite imagery in. And I tell everybody we're going to need to plan probably the day before, the night before we're going to go harvest that field, because it takes time for all that satellite imagery to be pulled in for that specific location in order to generate that predictive yield map, which will come up on the screen. Once that comes in, you'll get a check mark in Ops Center under the work plan, send it to the machine, and then once this machine dives into the boundary of that field, as you start harvesting, you just change a background layer on your screen. You're going to have your current coverage map or yield map that you're going to have that you would normally have, and then as a background layer you're going to have that predictive yield map, which is, it's not giving you numbers, it's just giving you different colored zones basically based off of what the satellite's seeing for biomass. Okay, so you can still harvest with just the cameras, but performance will be limited, right, if you don't have that satellite imagery. So that's why it's so important to plan ahead.
Or if you're going through a draw, or you can't see far enough ahead.
Exactly.
Even field conditions can change that a little bit.
Yep, that's why they'll fall back on each other. And the system will tell you. It's very intuitive, that display, so it knows, okay, hey, my cameras aren't seeing something right now, we're going to fall back to satellites. Or I don't have satellite imagery because we maybe didn't plan ahead. The cameras will still work until they won't. And then that predictive portion of things will shut off until the cameras can start working again. But that's good to have both of those feeding off of each other at the same time.
Yep.
Like I said, plan ahead the day before. Send those work plans out to the machine ahead of time, which is what we're going to be doing with each demo, right? So we got to plan ahead every time. We got to know, hey, customer, which fields are we going to be in roughly a day or two ahead of time. Get the machine there, make sure the work plan's sent, everything loads in. It loads in pretty quick, and it starts generating that map. But the nice part is, like, maybe your neighbor needs help and you got to go pick up a field of his that's not in your op center, not there, we can quickly go into op center, draw a hand boundary in there, name it, build a work plan, and then by tomorrow morning that satellite imagery will be there and you're ready to go harvest and let this thing do its job.
Yep.
Hopefully it all works out the way it plans. We haven't been in the field with them yet. I'm excited, but I think it'll go smooth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, looking forward to it.
Yeah.
Talk about the tech packages. So there's 3 different tech packages that can be ordered with these machines. What are they? What do you get?
Yep. So like tractors, anything that we're doing now, that Deere's doing, from tractors, sprayers, combines, it's all in packages. It makes simplified ordering, right? So with this machine, you'll have a select, premium, and an ultimate package, all right? In order to get the cameras, the predictive ground speed piece of it, or predictive ground speed automation, you'll need to order the ultimate package, which will come with everything. You'll have cameras on the elevators right here. You'll have the cameras forward facing. So that's the hardware side of things, okay? And then the display, and to activate these technologies, it is not a per acre fee. It's just an annual license, no different than auto track or some of the advanced technologies. Yep, just like the display. You have a combine advanced license that you pay up front for a year, 3 years, whatever that may be, and that enables those features. So you could order the ultimate tech hardware, but if you don't have the license, then you can just still use the standard automation features, just not the predictive side of it. But pretty simple. You order it with it and you're not worried about when to turn it on, when to turn it off. The goal is just turn it on and let it do its thing all the time.
Yep. Good.
Seems pretty simple. Well, I'm sure we'll have some questions and confusion every time they change things from licenses to in-base or whatever it may be.
Yep.
Yeah. So
call us and let us know. We're happy to talk through it. So
no, and we'll be talking about it on the farm hopefully when we're out with a lot of guys. So we've got a couple different draper heads that we're going to be running with it. Working on some shellborne stuff for stripper head guys, and then corn heads for fall. Some new features on those as well that I think will be pretty good.
Awesome.
Yep. So
good. Well, thanks for the information about the combine here. Again, this is the model year 25 S7 700. We have an S7 800 in Holyoke, so we'll be running these 2 combines through our geography here in wheat harvest and in corn harvest. So if you have questions on them, whether you're part of that demo group or not, frankly, give us a call. Happy to help you here at 21st Century with your questions, or get you scheduled for a demo and see how you could order one of these machines in 2025. So
yeah, and I think later in probably after wheat harvest, we're going to try to have some hands-on clinics with the customers between summer and fall harvest to get everybody around these machines and get to see them if you didn't get a demo in.
Absolutely. Cool.
So one other thing I wanted to point out about these S7 machines, if you're familiar with an S770, the previous model years, the gull wing design was a little different. This is a little more similar to an X9, where this whole door swings open. The ladder's completely changed here to where this just slides up and out of the way instead of pulls out like the old one did. You've got a handy, nice little fuel handle holder as you're climbing up the ladder with a heavy hose, cleaning everything.
First.
Safety first. I like it. So I think this is much more open and easy to get to, personally. So I'm excited about this. Obviously, chopper have changed a little bit here. You have it more stylistic and operational as the X9. Different style knives. So the spread that we need to get for these larger heads will be more even. One nice thing is, similar, since they've changed electrical architecture to the X9s, now we're running digital cameras on the backup, the unloading auger, and in the grain tank. So the older machines were analog, and the difference between image quality and view is night and day difference. It's phenomenal. So I've been pretty happy with that, just from a cab experience. Obviously you can see the adjustable unloading auger spout that I can control from the hydro handle. So it helps film that grain cart, topping it off front to back, side to side. I can do that all from the hydro handle now, fully integrated. You can still get this as a precision upgrade kit for your older machines for a combine, but now you can get it as a factory option. So that's nice.
Works great with machine sync as well.
It does.
Yeah.
Yep. And then one of the main things too, cross auger shut-off kits from the factory. Once again, you can still get this as a precision upgrade kit to retrofit back to your older machines, but it's nice ordering it straight from the factory and not having to install it. If you do get a precision upgrade kit, let's just say on a machine didn't order it, we usually do that right at the dealer before you get the machine anyway, but It is a nice feature to have to stage that unloading, so we're not starting and stopping the unloading auger full of grain. It'll let that thing clean out, shut those off, let the auger clean out, and then kill the whole system. So it's a nice staged unloading system. Once again, factory integrated, you don't even know it's there, except for the delay on the unloading side of things.
So as Derek mentioned earlier, also we have the cameras on the front of the machine they're doing that predictive ground speed automation work ahead to measure that biomass ahead of the machine, along with the satellite imagery. So those cameras are installed there on the front of the machine. You got one on the left and one on the right, looking crossways, and so it can really see the full width of the head that you have on the machine, and really nice cameras that can measure the biomass of that crop.
Yeah. So right now that'll work up to 50-foot heads, which is our full portfolio of lineup of heads, and then it's looking 27 feet out in front of the machine. Yep. So it does not detect obstacles in people and rocks, but it's just biomass. That's something to point out. So with the harvest automation, we're going to be able to see a lot of the same information a lot differently the way it analyzes it, right? So here's some of our grain loss right here. This is what we're looking at. We're basing grain loss now off of a number here, basically 0 to 9. We've always had the grain loss on the corner post, but now we can see that grain loss on the display, and basically it's going to show you a productivity graph. So let's say we set this number at 4.5. It doesn't mean 4.5 bushels or anything. It's just a number that we're going to pick, right? And then based on say I want less grain loss, I'm going to come in here and I'm going to decrease that to an acceptable loss amount, to whatever I need to have. And yes, obviously you can't just set it to 0 because you don't want 0 loss, right? But we find a happy medium, and we still have to get out and verify that. But this is how I'm going to set the machine right here, is I'm going to increase or decrease this grain loss limit. No longer am I going to be coming in and adjusting these speeds right here that we've always done, threshing clearance, threshing speed. Yes, it's good to have an understanding on how the machine works. That's very important in my opinion. But it's easier for me if once the automation's active, all I'm going to come in here and do is adjust these 3 numbers right here. I want to say, okay, I've got too much broken grain. We're going to come in here, we're going to adjust that. The machine automatically identifies what we want to do, makes the changes, adjusts the ground speed, and does that all for us. So it changes these. I can change my engine load and my ground speed. But you notice right here, here's my bushel and acre graph. And that's what I'm focused on. I got bushel an hour and bushel an acre. I'm not so worried about my ground speed that I've always been worried about before. So I'm going to engage this system. It's going to take off, and you're going to be able to watch the progress of it. I can see grain loss on my screen right here, as well as the settings. I can see what it's doing to adjust it. And then you can also dive into those and see, why is it adjusting the concave? Well, maybe it sensed that there was broken grain and we needed to open that concave up. So that's a good image of it, of what's going on the screen right here for harvest automation. Up here, you can actually see what the cameras are seeing from that predictive yield. So this is a live view that you can watch going through the field, 27 feet out in front of you, and as you're actually harvesting, that map will light up, that screen will light up with down crop. It'll turn green or red or orange, depending on what's out in front of it. So a very nice feature to be able to see along with our predictive yield map. Once we get harvesting, not only are you going to see your map view for coverage, moisture, or yield, but now my background, I'm going to have a predictive yield that I can select on my background layer and be able to see that going through the field. So once again, a very handy system here. Obviously we're not harvesting, but you can see how easy it is to identify what's going on with the machine in the harvest settings or harvest automation page here. It breaks it out into act, decide, and sense. But each one of these tells me if I've got something going on. If I've got green lights going on through here, I'm good to go. You can see right now my ground speed algorithm is orange, but not red. So I can still run this system. The reason it is orange is because my satellite views aren't in yet. I'm not in the field, I'm not harvesting, don't have a proper head type on it right now. So that's why it's not giving me a green here. But I'm still able to run it because my forward-facing cameras are ready to sense crop and ready to harvest. Once my satellite imagery is in, this will be green. everything will be good to go. And I engage it the same way as I've done Harvest Smart. I can run it on my buttons on the hydro handle. It drops ahead, engages the auto track, kicks on the automation, and I sit back and let it do its thing. And I'm monitoring my bushels an hour and bushels an acre along with these three numbers. So now I just don't have, if I had a less experienced operator and we identified that I've got too much loss on the ground and somebody hollering on the radio, then maybe I can come in here and decrease that number to an acceptable limit, save it, and it's going to make the adjustments needed on here to identify what we need to do. So I would say that's a pretty big jump here.
Thanks for joining us here on the FarmCast, presented by 21st Century Equipment, and we'll catch you on the next episode.
This thing's awesome. I should have had my feet up this whole time over in here, swiveling around.